Kia ora and welcome to Māori Minds. We like to mash up Māori philosophy and mental health and find new ways of applying traditional knowledge.
This episode offers some simple tips for healthcare professionals when working with Māori. This location is significant to me because of its connection to my tipuna or ancestor, Wairaka. Wairaka was the daughter of Tōroa, who was a captain of the Mātātua Waka. She's probably most famous for saving the Mātātua Waka when it came adrift from its mooring when the men went around. Wairaka uttered these words, "Kia whakatāne au I ahau, make me as a man," and defied the tapu that forbade women from handling a canoe and seized the paddle to bring the waka back to shore. She was the heroine that did what was necessary for the good of her people.
The other name for Western Springs is Te Waimimi or Wairaka. Te Waimimi or Wairaka, so you can guess what that might be about. It's the place where Wairaka passed some urine and that went on to form this body of water.
Another name given to Western Springs is Te Wai or Rea, the waters of the eel. The area around Auckland Zoo is also known as Te Mauri or Wairaka. Now Mauri is your vital essence or life force, and it is said that a very powerful Mauri stone was laid in that area.
So here's a little recipe for working with Māori, starting with 3 key ingredients, or KWK. So you got karakia, whakawhanaungatanga, and kaupapa. First we have karakia, and karakia is about creating a safe space for kōrero. It doesn't have to be in Māori, you can offer to do one in English, but usually what I do is I ask at the beginning of any assessment or interview whether a person wants to start with a karakia. Then they have the option to decline or even start one themselves.
It is a customary practice or tikanga to start with a karakia or prayer. You can keep small printed opening and closing karakia on the back of your ID card as a prompt. You can follow karakia with a round of whakawhanaungatanga. So that's the process of trying to make connections or make each other whānau by finding those kinship ties. And the best way we do that, beyond sharing our name and explaining our roles, is actually sharing our pepeha. Your pepeha includes your waka or canoe, your maunga or mountain, your awa or moana, so that's your river or ocean, your iwi, your tribe, your hapu or sub-tribe, your marae, and often you can introduce your parents, family names, and maybe an important ancestor or chief, so a tipuna or rangatira.
So the third ingredient or component that you need to remember when starting a conversation with Māori is to set the agenda, and that's kaupapa. So at the beginning of a psychiatric assessment, we usually include people's demographic information. And I usually like to include 3 things: N-I-B, NIB, and that's name, iwi, and birth order. So what's in a name? Well, 1, you want to try to pronounce somebody's name properly. And number 2, it's always useful to check if the person is named after an important ancestor. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. Sometimes people can inherit the same momo or traits as their ancestor or relative that they're named after, but also it can carry a burden. So if you're named after a significant ancestor, that may come with the burden of expectation. Perhaps in your whānau you are expected to take on some of the roles that your ancestor did, whether it's speaking rights on the marae, so sitting on the pai and delivering pai kōrero, or calling the karanga. So it's always important to check the significance of somebody's name.
Iwi. It's usually during the process of whakawhanaungatanga that we learn if someone is aware of their iwi or tribal affiliations. those that don't know their iwi may be more adversely affected by colonisation. They may not know te reo Māori, the Māori language, or may not have visited a marae. They may identify as urban Māori or feel little connection to their Māori heritage at all. Some may feel whakamā or shame that they don't know these things. This can be a barrier to people accessing cultural-based services, which can provide culturally reaffirming and restorative care. It's also useful to know if someone is affiliated to local iwi. There may be iwi-based services that they can access. Birth order. Always confirm the birth order of the siblings. If somebody is the firstborn or the mātāmua, they may be more likely to have an experience of being whāngai to other family members or adopted. Traditionally, it was fairly common for grandparents and childless relatives to whāngai or adopt the mātāmua. The mātāmua are more likely to carry names of tipuna, ancestors, and are expected to fulfil certain duties. In some iwi, only the eldest living siblings can do the karanga or call onto the marae. The same can be said for the kai kōrero or speakers on the marae. However, the pōtiki or last-born child, who possesses certain attributes or pūmanawa, and who demonstrates their mana, which is your authority or power, can earn the privilege to perform these roles and even become a rangatira or chief in their own right. The famous hero Maui was the pōtiki of his whānau. He performed various feats that enhanced his mana, like fishing up the North Island of New Zealand with his grandmother's jawbone and slowing down the transit of the sun. The eponymous ancestor of my iwi, Ngai Tūhoe, was Tūhoe pōtiki. He was the last-born child that acquired the mana of the mātāmua, his eldest brother Ueimua, by defeating him and consuming his heart.
When you want to start a conversation with Māori, remember these three things: KWK, karakia, whakawhanaungatanga, and kaupapa. And things you want to remember at the beginning of your assessment are NIB, nib, and that's name, iwi, and birth order.
Here's some resources that you might find helpful. First, we have Te Ara Online Encyclopedia of New Zealand at www.teara.govt.nz. If I search tikanga, you'll see some interesting results here, including basic marae etiquette. Next is the online Māori dictionary at www.maoridictionary.co.nz. A well-known reference book is Tikanga Māori, Living by Māori Values by Hirini Moko Mead. And finally, I grew up reading these beautifully illustrated books by Peter Gossage about the tales of Māui, and that includes classics like Te Ika a Māui or The Fish of Māui. They're available in most bookshops and online, and you can see they've even been animated as well.
So whānau, if you like what you see, consider subscribing to my channel. Okay, so that's it for today. Ka kite.